Last autumn, Riverford announced that for every new customer that came to Riverford through their Refer a Friend scheme, they would plant a tree. And so since then, we have been out planting hundreds of trees around Devon. And we're not just planting any old tree, we've been planting nut trees. So we've been planting hazelnuts, chestnuts and walnuts. And this is partly in hope that in the future, perennial crops like this will become more part of kind of UK grown food. So there's a little bit of concern at the moment that with all the enthusiasm of like planting trees to offset carbon and things, it's displacing farming and potentially competing with our food supply. And this would be a classic example of what's known as agroforestry, which is where it's not a question of farming for food or trees, it's a question of farming for food and trees, and about bringing the two together in the way you design the layout of a field. So this particular example of agroforestry behind me is what you would call silvo pasture. They're planted in strips across the field so that cows will still be able to come in and graze the grass in between. So you're no longer just producing beef from this field, you're also producing walnuts and hazelnuts as well as the beef, and the two kind of work really well together. The cows will benefit from things like the shade and shelter. It's also really great for biodiversity. It's obviously creating a lot more habitat. There'll be more places for kind of birds and insects and flowers that will result from having the trees in here. And the other thing that agroforestry is particularly good for, and this is increasingly important as we deal with the consequences of climate change, is that it helps manage surface water. So when we get extreme weather events, lots of rainfall, having trees in fields like this really helps like soak up a lot of that water and stop it running off and causing flooding further downstream from the field. So as far as we're concerned, agroforestry is very much a kind of win-win-win. So this year we've predominantly planted nut trees. Next year we might expand our range a bit. So we might look at different types of nut trees, we might look at fruit trees. There are trees that are actually particularly good for animals to eat. They can help them live a kind of healthier, happier lives. We might start to look at some of that next year. But ultimately it comes down to the more friends you refer to the Riverford boxes, the more trees we can plant.